Ms. Martinez, Director of Admissions, over this last year to be a future supporter of the GVHS Medical Society.
I do want to make special attention of the Medical Society group. There is nobody more dedicated than Brianna and her team for not just coming to our previous events, but trying to stay in contact with a higher institution as backlogged as everything gets is really, really tough. And I think, I'm sure most of you would agree that reaching out to adults, it can be kind of nerve-wracking, a little bit scary, probably easier not to. But she has been in contact with our office since late April, early May, talking about bringing our team down here or trying to set something up. I am here representing our team, and trust me, they wanted to be here too. We're just in the middle of a lot of things, which I'll get into, but the communication that the group had was so tactful and professional that I could not wait to get down here and speak to everyone. So please, just a quick round of applause for that. So as Brianna said, we're going to cover a bunch of topics today. A lot of what we do is geared towards college students, right? We speak to high schoolers, but a lot of times the information that they want or that we're ready to share is something that you would get in your sophomore or junior year of college. But that is frankly just too late to be thinking about becoming a doctor. Nevada is facing one of the biggest healthcare crises in the country simply because we are about, I think the last number I saw was 2,300 physicians, just physicians, not any other position, 2,300 physicians short for the population in the state. And that was as of 2021. So you can imagine that that number is going to grow because people are not leaving this state, they're actually moving to it. And we have one of the most rapidly aging populations, right? So Las Vegas, you probably know, is a really nice place to retire. It's always warm. There are nice places to kind of be by yourself and have a little oasis to yourself. And that is common for Nevada. So as that population ages, we don't have people to take care of their specific needs. So regardless of what branch of healthcare you're thinking about, it's vital that you take that path seriously because not only is there a lot of career opportunities there, but if you're planning on staying in this state long term, we're going to need that help. As someone who is rapidly aging himself, it's vital that we have that kind of care. And just by nature of the state, it is also very, very rural. So we'll talk about some of that as we get through this, but some of those smaller areas don't have hospitals or clinics. They have teledoc, which is a great filler, but it's not necessarily the kind of care that people need when it comes to those populations. So we're going to talk about a lot of that. And I bring that up at the beginning specifically to let you know that a lot of what we're talking about are strategies and mindsets, and those factor into becoming a doctor, becoming a nurse, becoming any kind of healthcare professional, but more importantly, becoming a great student and a great human being. So all of these things are relative to everyone in this room, regardless if you want to be a doctor or not. So, as Brianna said, I'm Garrett Valenzuela. I'm with the School of Medicine's admissions team. So I head up our marketing and outreach, and really what that means is I push as many resources as possible to as many people thinking about pre-med or going into medicine as possible. And we have an entire team that is outside of ours dedicated to making the school look good and talking about how great we are. So I'm only going to do a little bit of that today because I can't help it, but that is not necessarily my role. I do take it very seriously, but my role is to get you, everybody in here who's thinking about a career in healthcare, the information they need to thrive all the way up to their application to medical school, because if you thrive in those early years, you're going to thrive in medical school and beyond. This is almost our complete team. I got this slide up to date before we had some members get back in time to send us some pictures, but these are the people who actually make the admissions cycle run. Now, when I say admissions, does anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
Basically, like, this is why you first
Yeah, so for the School of Medicine, we have an admissions process, which is why we have this team.
Entering how to get into the school.
Absolutely, the application process. So we're processing every year over 2,000 applications for people who want to go to school here, right? We have 70 seats. So there is a lot to filter through, right? And that is why, even though this team could be larger for that number of applications, we get it done with the people you see here. So our Dean of Admissions is a licensed physician. He practices at Renown in Reno. He does palliative medicine, which is caring for people who are terminally ill. So he's been doing medicine since, I think, 2015. He's been in those roles. He did oncology, obstetrics. He's seen a lot. And one of the things that we try to do is let people know that we are also people. We are approachable. The reason we chose these fun pictures is we want you to come ask us questions, right? In this session and beyond, I want to take any questions that you have, all right? So if you have anything that you see that comes to mind, let's talk about it while we're in session, and don't wait till the end. Oh, we'll have time to ask it before the end. Just ask it, because if you don't, you'll be left wondering, and if we don't cover it, then you may never know, and you'll end up having to ask Jimmy over email. So very quickly, this is our team doing stuff that they find joy in. So Jenny, Sheila, and Hannah are our administrators. They basically move everything for us while we're out talking to students or managing applications. They're behind the scenes making everything run, all the way from receipts to booking rooms for us to do presentations and such. This is Jenny in the Canadian Rockies. Sheila is in Hawaii. I think she's been to 5 of the 6 islands. Hannah moved to Nevada from Washington, and so she spends most of her time outdoors. She has a snake, ridiculous. I have no idea what she's doing with that in her house, but that's a thing. So she's our newest member. Melissa Vondrak manages all of our applications. So she and Jenny tag team those 2,000 applications I talked about. They narrow it from over 2,000 to 1,700 to 800 to 600, and that moves us into the interview stage, which is managed by Michaela, who's right there. She takes all of those applications and lines up interviews for over 500 students every single year, and that's them being interviewed by a doctor. It could be a medical doctor, it could be a PhD, could be a research scientist. We have 500 interviews to get through every single year, and those interviews are scored by their evaluators and placed into their application for med school. So you have your application, everything that you've done and achieved on one side, your interview on the next side, and that goes to a committee to be selected. So Michaela manages that middle part, and then Melissa and Jenny and Hannah help manage that secondary part. Caitlin Oxenreiter manages our pathway programs. She focuses a lot of her attention on it's actually a new program that we have yet to be named. We have a program that allows students who start their degree in undergrad at UNR as a freshman and know they're going to go into medicine. They can take that track, we give them extra support, and then they are assured a seat. As long as they score high on the MCAT and do well in their coursework, they're assured a seat. That original program is now being taught out, and she is creating a new one. And she is also the manager of our post-bac program, which I'll touch on a little bit later, but that is, in short, a program for students who struggled academically maybe years ago, or decided they wanted to go into medicine after doing a different career, but didn't have the grades or didn't have the science background, but are showing great improvement, and they jump into that program. We push them really hard for a year on their science coursework, and then an intense MCAT study, and if they score over 502, they get in. And that seat is also assured, right? So competitive program, it has 9 people in it this year, and it's one of the more exclusive things about what UNR does with that student support, because not every student is going to be the scholastic dream that people at Stanford and Harvard are looking for. We understand that, and we built that pathway because great students come out of those programs. Some of the best and most inspiring stories you'll see. And if you can't tell, Melissa, she is a kickboxer and Muay Thai instructor. Michaela likes being outside with friends, and Caitlin's doing a science experiment with her children. Nick Dunkel to the left of her, pictured with someone from a band that he really likes to listen to. I'm told is a former first responder and helps a lot of the diverse groups. Nick heads up a lot of our diversity initiatives, which includes our trio pre-med prep. Anybody have an idea about first generation students and what makes one? You guys ever been talked about that when it comes to college? So first generation students are college students who have applied and been admitted to college that don't have parents who went to college. Does that describe anyone in here? Show of hands. Excellent. So one of the things you should know, I won't talk about it the whole time, but I probably could. When you get to college, there are special programs designed for first generation students that give you a ton of support, exclusive internships, and they are state and federally mandated at the college level. And UNR's is particularly wonderful. They have an incredible team of people who just support first gen students. That's all they do. And the reason those things were instituted is this state has a lot of first gen students who get into college because they do well in high school, but don't actually have the support they need to finish college. So those first gen students get in and struggle, and they weren't making it to graduation, so they have specific programs for those students. So that's something you should look into if you qualify. That's one or both parents didn't go to college, you qualify as a first gen student. Trust me, these programs, if they were around years ago, I would probably be working there instead of with the School of Medicine because of how incredible they are. Great team of people. You should be checking into them in your junior or senior year of high school to see how you can get in, because they will support you all the way through your professional career. And then of course me on the left, that's my wife and daughter outside, right at Lake Tahoe. I'm from the middle of nowhere. Anybody been through Tonopah before? Right? How many gas stations do they have? Exactly, it's like 10. There's like 10 gas stations and 2,000 people. Really great place to live. But there's no water, so anytime I'm around water, that's when I'm at my happiest. So everybody sends their love, but right now we're in the middle of that application cycle I was talking about. So on Wednesday, we have another 65 students coming in for interviews, and they are busy prepping for that right now. So I want to talk again about some strategies and things that every future doctor needs to know. Again, these do apply to all the other healthcare fields, but things you need to be thinking about for the admissions process are things you should be thinking about and possibly doing right now. When we get into the admissions process, there's something that most schools don't talk about because it's relatively new, but it is being more widely adopted. It's called holistic review. So that is a new idea. A lot of your bigger schools, right, ones with a ton of money, really only look at those factors. So if you were a good student and you scored high on the MCAT, you must be a good doctor. So what we found is that doesn't necessarily translate to being a great physician. You might be a great student and do very well in medical school, but has anyone ever been to the doctor and had a hard time communicating with them? Maybe they didn't quite understand what you were saying, or didn't look in the eye a whole lot. Maybe they looked uncomfortable, so you felt uncomfortable. Anyone? It's more common than it should be, right? So what UNR Med does is this holistic review looks at, of course, your academics and your MCAT. We have minimum standards just like every school does, because schools are governed by the American Association of Medical Colleges, the AAMC, and you have to have those specific standards. But we wrap in your experiences and who you are as a person, your specific journey, into every application. So when I say that we bring in 2,000 applications, if many of them have a 3.4 GPA, not all of them are being rejected, but it hurts your chances of getting fully reviewed. So if you have a 3.8 and a great MCAT score and you've never stepped foot inside a hospital, what do you think your chances of getting in are? What? It's all right. I'm not scary. What'd you say?
Less.
Less. They're actually very low. 4.0 students with, I think our minimum score is a 5.0, or our minimum qualification is a 5.08 on the MCAT. 4.0 students with 515 MCATs are rejected every single year. So it is not just about your academics, and you need to know that before I dig into this stuff, because what we're talking about is more than being good at school. Of course, it is vital that you focus in your classwork, now all the way through your undergrad years or your pre-med years, but you have to get yourself out there and get experiences in order to not only be a good applicant, but to be a good physician. All of those things are tied together and they cannot be separated, right? Good students are rejected all the time, and they don't necessarily get a reason. You just get in or you don't, right? We hold workshops to help students figure out why they may not have gotten in, but you don't get a specific reason. So if you're sitting there with high grades and a great test score, but you've never actually seen what a doctor does on a day-to-day basis, even for a day, then you probably don't understand necessarily that your experiences are what's holding you back, right? Pre-med is a designation. So when it comes to being pre-med in high school, these are some of the things you need to know, right? Being pre-med means you are at least considering going to medical school or entering the medical field in some way, right? Not everyone's planning on being a doctor, that's totally fine, but being pre-med is a designation you give yourself, and really what it does is tell your advisors, your professors, and yourself that you are striving for something that is way in the future, but you're taking it seriously now, because those science courses that you're taking are foundational for what you're going to learn, and trust me, they will be the simplest even when they're difficult, because when you get to medical school, it is another step up. So that's something you need to know going in. If you want to be pre-med, you need to be telling your college advisors that on day one. Doesn't mean you can't switch. You don't have to write it in stone, but if you're gonna be pre-med and you're considering it seriously, then let them know, because there are always more resources for pre-med students, just like pre-law students. You know you wanna go to law school, they put you in a different category, but you're still majoring in one of the sciences that are gonna help you build that foundational knowledge, okay? We talked a little bit about the MCAT, medical college's admissions test. This is administered to every student who gets into medical school, and it is really unlike any test that you're going to take ever. We suggest having at least 6 months, if not more, of dedicated study time to prepare for that test. And again, that's years in the future for everyone in this room, but the foundational science knowledge is being learned in high school and in your pre-med years or your freshman, junior, sophomore, junior years in college. Those courses are going to help you prepare for the MCAT, but there are other sections to the MCAT like psychology and communication. All those things are on there, and it is a ton of reading. It is a complete mental shift, right? So just know that that test is unlike any other test. And what a good pre-med should know is, hey, I'm not thinking about the MCAT right now. I'm doing my science courses and I'm working hard in those. I'm not studying for the MCAT in my freshman year of college. That makes no sense, because you haven't learned the foundational science yet, right? When you hear me talk about MCAT scores and how important they are, but you need to get the knowledge first. So don't worry about that stuff when you're in high school, okay? Here we go. Participation. Who wants to take a guess at the national average cost for medical school? Average. Okay, not what Stanford costs. That's too much. Average. Yes. That's really not close. No, good guess. National average is about $203,000 for 4 years of medical. Again, that is after your undergraduate degree or your pre-med years, right? So 4 years of college, then 4 years of medical school, and just medical school on average, $203,000. Okay, now UNR Med has some of the cheapest tuition, especially on the West Coast. Our students are at about $171,000 in total debt when they're finished. Okay? Scary. That's good. That woke this classroom up. I love that. Because that is
in-state?
Yes. And we do have We work very hard at those kinds of things to make sure that out-of-state students have the ability to become in-state after a year, right? It takes a little bit of financial footwork, but we have a team of people that just do debt management and financial aid. That's all they do in our office, scholarships, financial aid, and debt management. They meet with students all the time on how to just balance the budget, make sure they know what they're paying for, what are they applying for, where to apply. That's all they do. And we build those supports in because this is a huge undertaking, right? And you need to know that up front. So nothing I'm saying today should deter you. All of this stuff, every doctor in the world, like the Dr. Derringer who I showed in that previous slide, still paying off his debts, right? But you won't find a happier guy flying a hot air balloon all over Reno because he went to medical school because he needed something more. He was built for something more. So that debt is real, okay? And there are people there to help support you and get you through that stuff, all right? Who knows, does anyone know, like, want to take a shot or know what 4 years of medical school looks like classroom work versus going to hospitals? Anybody have any ideas? Want to take a guess? So we're going to dive into, don't move. You got a guess? You flinched. You were thinking about it. No. We're going to dive into some of that, and again, it's not to scare you about how long it takes. The reason it takes a long time is it is not your average job. Right? When you are a physician, you are taking someone else's life and privacy in your hands. You don't just finish up college and jump right into it like when I started writing for the newspaper. It's not like being a journalist, right? It's completely different. So those years are there to protect you and your knowledge so that you are serving your patients the way that you should be, okay? I need someone to tell me one thing that would look good on a medical school application that isn't grades or MCAT score. Yes?
Something that is like different, like you do something that people won't see in other people's curriculum.
Yes. Give me an example.
If you have like a passion about something, like
Absolutely.
if you like painting or you like dancing or like some art or something, I don't know, different.
No, that's absolutely right. Having something that isn't medicine related or school related for that matter, that you enjoy doing, that you can communicate that passion. We're going to talk about that too. Yes?
I think also volunteering and shadowing time with doctors, especially volunteering during high school, because that shows your early interest in the medical field.
How much time should we spend shadowing? What's the minimum? Anyone?
100?
Like how many hours? What should we do?
I
Yes?
think it's 100. By shadowing or volunteering?
Either.
100 or 250.
250? Anyone else? No guesses? Come on. That was a trick. There is no minimum. One of the reasons we went to the holistic review is the question, well, I have 1,000 hours of shadowing, so that's all I need, right? That's great. But it's not the only thing you need. There is no minimum. Okay, the number one thing that the admissions committee hates most is box checking. I did my 50 hours of volunteering, so it proves I'm a good person. Were you forced? Did you like it? Was it your choice? Or did you just think it would look good on your application? I volunteered here because it shows I really love working with underprivileged people. Do you? Can you? Because putting a baseline number on things like that creates box checking. That's why we got rid of it. Because if you're passionate about it, like you mentioned, then not only do the hours show, but so does the way you discuss that topic. That's what the committee is looking for. When they read through your application, and there are 7 essays on there, they're looking for, can you communicate the passion you have for helping others or for serving a higher purpose? Can you communicate that with them to the point where they feel that you could handle medical school? Because remember, they're not admitting you to be a doctor. You got 4 years of medical school to get through. They're admitting you to the test to become a doctor. And I mean the tests you take academically, the tests you take in your residency programs and your rotations, right? They are looking at you from a very, very 30,000-foot view. And if they don't think that you can communicate why you want to help people, it doesn't matter if you have 2,000 hours of shadowing or of drawing people's blood as a phlebotomist. You can have all of that, but if you can't communicate it, then you're probably not going to get in, which is why we're talking about these things. These are so vital to the work you do now. Doing things with intention is something you need to learn now to take with you into your undergrad years and then eventually to medical school. Right, so we talked a little bit about the pre-med years, okay? Very long time. 6 steps, pretty simple, right? So this is 4 years, right? Your pre-med years, undergraduate, 4 to 5 years. You've got your bachelor's degree in some foundational science that will help you in medical school. Some students take a gap year. 1 in 4. 1 in 4 applicants is denied, just to UNR Med. So 75% of students who apply do not get in. And usually that's because they feel, they being the committee who selects, that you're not quite ready. That's what the gap year is for. And UNR Med, we encourage it. You finish your undergraduate degree in 4 years, you're now, let's say, 22 years old, and you're applying to medical school with a limited exposure to medicine. You've done some volunteering, you've done some shadowing, you did great in school, your MCAT's just fine, but are you mature enough to handle medical school? So there's more than just those components, right? That's what they're evaluating. And that gap year, trust me, 1 whole year of no school, just focusing on getting exposure to medicine and having experiences that can help you improve your application, the gap year can work wonders. 1 year, half a year, but some students need 1 year, 2 years, and trust me, the longer you wait, the more mature you'll be, the more you'll understand what the admissions committee is looking for. It doesn't mean you can't apply, but it does mean if you don't get in on the first try, which again is very common, it does mean that maybe you just need more exposure to the field of medicine, right? It doesn't mean that you didn't represent yourself well, it just means you need more time, you need more experience. So we build those gap years in. Then medical school, 4 years, right? The first 2 years are all classroom work, the didactic years. You're in the classroom basically 8 to 4:30, Monday through Thursday, and then on Friday you study and study and study. 500 flashcards every single day, tests, exams, and then eventually your step exams, which get you to the next grade, which is your grade, the next year, right? So each year you're going to be tested. At the end of year 2, you take a step exam. If you don't pass that, you can't move forward. The third year is what we call away rotations. So we send our students to rural outreach clinics that serve those smaller areas of Nevada, which again, we are rife with places like Yarrington, Battle Mountain, right? Fallon, Winnemucca. Again, we're taking the northern half of the region. I'm from Tonopah, we don't have a hospital there, right? So we serve those populations there. We set up clinics to make sure that those students can get in. And then we also offer our students the chance for electives where they can go and specialize in something that they're very interested in: surgery, obstetrics, internal medicine, research, things that they're interested in, they have the chance to go into in those final 2 years. We do not allow students to take 30 weeks of surgery. You do have to spread it out. You have to do more than one specialty to make sure that 1, you're well-rounded, but 2, that your calling isn't hidden in a specialty you never would have thought, right? Dr. Derringer said when he went into obstetrics, he was dead set on going into surgery. And it was that 3rd-year rotation that opened his eyes to obstetrics, and he ended up doing his fellowship in that. So again, that's still within the first 4 years. Residency, 3 to 7 years minimum. Depending on the specialty, another 3 to 7 years to just focus on that chosen path. Okay, so we're talking about 10 plus years, 12 in some cases, just to get to the end of this road, which again is the beginning. The end of this road is the beginning of you being a doctor, right? You're a doctor in your residency and you are practicing, but when you get to the end of your residency and you are now a licensed physician on your own, you want to set up your own practice or work in a hospital, that is the beginning after 10 or 12 years. So when I say that committing to it now is something you need to be invested in, that's why. Because this is really, really early in this very long journey, right? And again, it never ends. I put this at the bottom because it never ends. The continuing medical education is required for your license, so you have to do it, just like most jobs. But the ongoing communication you will have to have with other doctors never ends. Whether you're learning or teaching, does not matter. You will be learning by force. If you don't want to, probably not the best place to go, but you will be learning for the rest of your life, which is why you want to instill those things now when you're in high school, because you learn them now, you get into your undergrad years, and it's going to be a lot easier. Passion, like you mentioned, right? Readiness, maturity, capacity to contribute. I can't show you the rubric because it's classified or whatever, but the admissions committee that I mentioned is 20 human beings. It's second and third year medical school students, people from across UNR's campus in biology and the major sciences departments, current and retired physicians, and 2 members of the School of Medicine that are not professors. That's who makes up the committee. And those people review every application that makes it through those stages, right? I mentioned 2,000 to 800, 600. After interviews, we collect about 300 applications, and they go through every one of those, reading what your scores were, what your transcripts look like, answers to your essay questions, right? They watch your interviews, and then they check your interviewer's scores. All of that, this is what they're trying to determine. So when you are setting goals, hey, I'm going to medical school, these are the 3 things you will need to demonstrate when it comes time for the application, right? That's a long way off. You guys are probably 6 years from applying to medical school minimum, right? So when it comes to, hey, I want to know how to get into medical school, it's these 3 factors. Do you have a passion for medicine? Because if you don't, and you're going to medical school because your parents want you to, they can tell. It's really, really easy. I have not been doing this very long by most standards. They can tell instantly who has a passion for medicine and who wants to just get into medical school because they're supposed to. Okay, it's really simple. Just like I said, they can spot a box checker, they can spot that as well. So knowing that you want to help others, that is key. You will be forced to communicate these 3 factors in your application. So how do you expand that passion for medicine? We talked about a couple, volunteering, right, or shadowing. Those are ways you can get in. People love free helpers, and if you're just getting a little bit of exposure, you would be shocked at what you can learn in some of those shadowing opportunities. But again, you have to be able to communicate that to the admissions committee. And you're only doing that with your writing. Does anyone hate to write? Like would prefer to do math? No way. Oh, okay, that scared me there for a second, because math is the worst, right? Science kids. Okay. Well, if everyone loves to write because you're either asleep or lying, which I assume is mostly lying, if everyone loves to write, then practice now. Write a personal statement for yourself. Write it again every single year. After you shadow someone or volunteer doing something, even if it's a school function, write about it. See how your writing evolves over the next couple of years, because trust me, you are going to need it. The number of med school students who say they wish they would have written more before they got in because of how many times they had to apply, the writing is endless. It's how they get to know you, right? Your transcripts can tell one half of the story. Hey, this person is a straight A student. That's great. But you have to be able to communicate that the experience you had riding in the ambulance that one night was the most impactful experience in your life, or you hated it. I knew for sure I didn't want to be an EMT because I hated this experience. Show that. If you're able to communicate that, that is what impresses these admissions committees. And these are just some of the ways you can do that, right? If anyone has a friend, your parents have a friend who's a doctor, a nurse, physical therapist, it doesn't matter. Interview them. Find out what their experience was getting into their selected specialty. Things like that will open your mind to what it's going to take for you. And again, write about those things. That is crucial to the future of your medical school application. So I mentioned the AAMC earlier, right? They have the 17 pre-med competencies. What?
Hey.
Nice. You get to go first. Anatomy of an applicant. This is the Bible of pre-med students. Okay, I brought it up for everyone. You do not feel forced to take one, but I'm gonna leave them up here for everybody to grab on their way out. But this book has not only the competencies that you will be required to know to get into medical school, but you can guarantee that the MCAT is testing on every one of those. Every single one. And this thing is, I think, 60-something pages from the back, yeah, 45, 60 pages, depending on what version you get. Those competencies are also what you are trying to build towards, because you're going to see them in your undergrad years, you will see them in medical school, you will see them on the MCAT, and you will see them in your career as a physician. So when it comes to knowing those things, right, gotta have the science foundation. You need to be focused on your classwork, thinking and reasoning, how you interact with other people. All that stuff factors in, just like we've talked about. Okay, we'll talk a little bit deeper on some of these. When it comes to the macro systems, again, it's early. I'm showing you this information probably 4 years early, but the best advice I can give you when it comes to selecting your major, one, don't stay tied to it. If you find a certain science course is not for you and it's your major, talk to your advisor about switching. That's okay. Find the courses that you have the most interest in because they are challenging, and you need to be able to invest yourself in them, because there's a difference between going to class and doing well and actually learning that information and being able to hold on to it for the next class. Okay, those things that you are learning in those classes are not only foundational, but you will need them on day one of medical school. So freshman biology class, 121 or whatever it is, oh, this is my first class of the day, it's my freshman year, this should be simple. That information is needed on day one of medical school. So take those courses with intent. If you have a particular subject that is not your favorite, you'll probably still have to take it, but find a major that is going to help you with your path to medical school. And know that it's not gonna be the same one as everyone else. You need to find the one that fits for you, and you need to study often. And I'm talking about with friends, by yourself, meet with your professors. Those science classes are going to be crucial to what you need. And again, they are not just knowing the cells and molecules. You will be tested on psychology, right? Interpersonal interaction. Your interview for medical school is an interpersonal interaction, right? You need to learn how to communicate to others and communicate what you're trying to do, your goals. When it comes to thinking and reasoning, these are just some of the things that you'll need. Humility, service, cultural awareness, ethical responsibility, all those things. This is not only what's in that book, that's right here at the end, please feel free to take them. These are all part of those competencies. So when you're talking about, hey, I organized something that was working with students with disability or people with disabilities, that small interaction covers more than half of what medical schools are looking for. So as you're setting things up like that, I'm not saying you need to do them like, oh, I have to set this up because it would show that I'm ethically responsible, right? That's not what your thought was. It was, hey, we're looking to help a group of people and a bunch of students with a common goal all got together. But that teamwork aspect quickly turns into a few other pieces of the med school application. Again, I can show you exactly what they're looking for, but really what we're talking about is building it every single day with the little things that you do, the interactions you have with the club. Those things are all covering the pieces that you're gonna need for your med school application. There are endless opportunities, right? The Medical Society has already afforded you one way to just be around like-minded, motivated individuals who are headed towards something. That collaborative effort is available all across the city, right? It's the biggest city in the state. You have tons of resources, okay? HOSA clubs are designed specifically for high school students, math and science clubs, medical society club. There are so many different ways to get involved and get started now. The key is you have to seek them out. When I mentioned at the beginning that Brianna sought us out and really kept the communication to make sure we would come out here and provide more resources, she came to us, right? That's what it's gonna take. You are going to have to do the reaching out. You are going to have to, this expression's over, but cold call a physician to find out how to get in there and shadow somebody. You may have to ask for a favor from somebody. So those things need to start now, because trust me, if you practice and get rejected a few times, it won't hurt as much when you get into really needing it, okay? Volunteerism. These are some of the places, like these two are actually in Reno that we have buildings for, but volunteering can happen anywhere, okay? Make sure it's something that you're passionate about. And just because you volunteer somewhere and you don't enjoy it, doesn't mean it wasn't a meaningful experience. So remember that you can do volunteering, shadowing that doesn't go very well. That doesn't mean you can't include it on your medical school application. That happens all the time, and it's some of the best writing that you'll find. I knew for sure surgery wasn't for me because of an incident that happened late at night at the hospital where I was shadowed, right? That is smart. That shows that not only were you there, but you are reflecting on what you felt that night. That is important for your med school application, okay? Exposure. When I talk about having a growth mindset, these are just some of the things you can do, right? CNA is the top one. One of the students from UNLV, who's in her second year of medical school, said she got her CNA because it was the cheapest, the fastest, and it put her in the hospital quickly. Was the job glamorous? Of course not. Any job you're starting out, that, hey, at least you get paid a little bit, but someone who does CNA, phlebotomy, EKG, any of these tech positions, if you get in there, you are seeing more of the medical practice than somebody who is not. So if you have a 3.8 and other students have a 4.0, but you've been a CNA for 4 years, whose application is more likely to be accepted in that holistic review, right? And I shouldn't phrase it that way because you guys should not be competing against one another. You should be working with each other to not only get these opportunities and share them, but to study and work forward as a group, because trust me, you're gonna need to lean on others the further along you go.